On this episode of Supply Chain Today with Ralph Henderson, we're going to talk about the future, augmented reality, spatial computing, artificial intelligence, and labor in the material handling and supply chain industry. Get ready, it's pretty bright. Welcome back to Supply Chain Today with Ralph Henderson. Today I'm joined by Brian Federal, a futurist. We'll explain that in just a minute. Welcome, Brian.
It's good to be here, Ralph. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to be talking to you because in the material handling industry and the supply chain industry, it seems that for the last few years, we're talking about disruptive technologies, we're talking about different things as it relates to technology and the supply chain. And today, with being a futurist, you're going to help us to understand a little bit more about what that is. Before we even get started, can you just maybe briefly explain to our audience, what does futurist mean?
Well, a futurist is somebody that looks at current trends and sees how they relate to our society, and then actually iterates out, looks at what could happen, and looks at different possibilities. A futurist doesn't necessarily guide, though some do. Some say, we could drive it in this direction or that direction. But basically it's just looking at the whole ball of wax, all the changes that are happening, and then seeing how those things are going to affect business, our personal lives, and things of that nature. So a lot of companies are hiring futurists now. They'll have a futurist on staff, which basically, in some ways, it's like being just a researcher.
Right.
You know, it's reading a lot.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that's where I was going to go is in the few years that you and I have gotten to know one another, and you're speaking at the Material Handling Industry's annual conference, which, by the way, I found fascinating. I loved how you do your research and how you get the detail behind the information, and that was neat. And one of the things we were talking about is disruptive technologies, because MHI and CSCMP, who put out these annual reports, talk about disruptive technology. What are disruptive technologies?
Disruptive technologies could all be seen as coming from digitization or from the computer itself. The computer's power has been growing at an exponential rate. So what your cell phone in your pocket is way more computing power than was used when we landed on the moon in 1969.
Wow.
So disruptive technologies are technologies primarily that are based on digitization. So if you wanted to look at a disruptive technology in our culture right now, you might want to look at Airbnb, which basically is the largest hotel chain in the world, and they have no hotels.
Right.
So it's a piece of software that's able to do the same job over and over. So they're creating a platform, and then they actually get a little money out of each rental, and it's something that's grown tremendously. Same with Uber. Those are very good examples of digitization that would be disruptive technology. But you could even look at Microsoft Office.
Right.
Microsoft made some software. It cost them so much to make that, and then they were able to resell it to quite a few people.
And in the supply chain space, companies like Tompkins International are doing things with robotics. You know, that just a few years ago you would have never thought about. And it's fascinating, and I've done a little bit of research on that. And then other companies like Winright, if you will, which is a integration company that are doing things with automation, where you're bringing, conveyor technology with warehouse management system technology, with warehouse control system technology, and being able to integrate all that. Talk to us about what changes disruptive technologies has driven in the past couple of years, specifically in the material handling space.
It's really driven a lot of communication. So in the warehouse itself, and using robotics, there has to be information, sensors, different things. It has to know where the robot is going to take the package, where it left the package. This is a lot of data. So it ends up being a data management issue. Actually, a lot of businesses take in a lot more data than they actually use.
Right.
So what they're doing now is some companies are creating a digital twin for all their logistics issues. And in creating that digital twin, they can throw anything out and they can learn things.
And we'll be right back.
What's the easiest way to get more business? Have people call you. How do you get people to call you? Well, they've got to know you. How do you get them to know you? How does Hollywood do it? In Hollywood, they've been making people more well-known for years through film and television. Why can't we do that in the supply chain? We can. I'm Ralph Henderson with Omnichannel Productions, and we can produce a TV show about your product or service that you can be promoted in so more people will know who you are. And then they'll call you, because it's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you. To get your production rolling, call 704-937-1370 or visit omnichannelproductions.com.
Welcome back to Supply Chain Today with Ralph Henderson. I am joined by Brian Federal, a futurist, and we're talking about, of all things, disruptive technologies. Brian, what I'd like to talk about now is how this disruptive technology and labor come together, because as we alluded to before, that seems to be the top two items that executives in the supply chain and materials handling space are really thinking about right now. So help me with bringing together disruptive technology and labor as it relates to the scarcity of labor, as it relates to the quality and quantity of labor. For example, I know there's a company out there, CCS, Carter Controls, that is specifically addressing the labor issue right now because it is such a big deal. So maybe help the audience connect those two things together and how we might be able to use this all to our advantage going forward.
Yes, there's a lot of different things going on, and I want to move into spatial computing as part of this
I'm sorry,
answer.
what?
Spatial computing.
Spatial computing. Okay,
Yes.
You're going to have to help me here.
Okay, well, we're going to start out with a real world case study. I was in an advanced manufacturing facility a couple weeks ago, and I was meeting with the gentleman that manages it, and we were going through all this very high-end 3D printing equipment that was being made there. And so I started talking to him about labor, and some of the guys, some of these printers are made specific for different jobs, so they're custom 3D, very expensive 3D printers. And so I saw them with all the books around. I mean, this guy's working on the machine. He's got 3 books, or engineering books that are about this thick, that he's going through as he's putting this thing together. So as I spoke with this gentleman a little bit more, he was telling me he has 30 openings right now.
Wow.
And it takes him 36 months to get somebody from 0 to where they're profitable
To
for
full
them.
speed, yeah.
Yes, and so that's where spatial computing comes in. There are 2 things. There's virtual reality, which you've seen where people have these bricks on their face.
VR.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
VR is where what that does is that's immersive. It takes everything away. It's like going into a different world. And then the more interesting part to me is actually AR, which actually you wear a pair of glasses and it overlays a digital information between you and whatever you're looking at.
And AR is augmented reality.
Augmented reality.
Okay.
So it's augmenting the reality.
I got you.
And there's a lot of different things people call it. They're
Sure,
still working
I
on it,
understand,
but
right.
pretty much. You might see XR or
Sure,
MR, or
yeah.
we don't want to get into that right now. But what's interesting, what's come back through science around education is when people learn in 3 dimensions, they actually remember much more. They took people and taught them just with flat paper and flat screens, and then they had people learn a task in 3D. And what happened was, after 2 weeks, the people that learned on paper remembered about 30% of the information. The people that learned in 3 dimensions, they remembered about 70% of the information.
Which brings up a really good point. We're getting ready to have a trade show called MODEX, right, down
Yes.
in Atlanta. The material handling industry produces this. There will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 800, 900 exhibitors, 30, 40,000 people. This helps me with maybe helping them understand how to better teach their clients and prospects with what their products and services do. Would you agree with that? And how might you think about how they would be able to use that, right, to help not only just prospects, but also their employees do better at what they do?
Absolutely. There's a lot of different sectors of business that this will apply to, but certainly looking at logistics, this is a big one. As far as training people, the reason that this is so using spatial technology, augmented reality as part of your digital workflow through your logistics operation can be something that it compresses time. So what would happen is if I was a guy in the warehouse, these glasses would be hooked to a computer through Wi-Fi, and it would show me if I said, hey, you can even talk to it, and it would say, where is a box of screwdrivers? Okay, and it's going to go, okay, and a little arrow will come and take you right to where that is, because it knows where it is.
Well, this is fascinating, and again, we could talk about this for quite a while. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Definitely we need to get back together again to talk about this going forward. You agree with that?
I do.
All right,
I'm
thank
ready.
you so much.
It was really great to see you today.
Thank you for being here on Supply Chain Today with Ralph Henderson.